Welcome to the Student Success Podcast. I'm your co-host, Sean Malloy, and soon joining me will be your host, TJ Pingator. Join us each week as we delve into many of the biggest problems that college students face today. Whether you don't know how to pick your major or you have no idea how to network to get hired, TJ and I can help you. And if we can't help you, we'll bring on the professional or recent postgrad who can help. Subscribe to our show on iTunes and YouTube and join us each week to become your own student success. Welcome to your introduction episode of the Student Success Podcast, brought to you by Student Success University. I'm your co-host, Sean Malloy, a recent grad from Stevens Institute of Technology, and I'm joined today to kick off your student success ahead with your host and Global Student Success Ambassador, TJ Pingator. How are you doing, TJ?
Hey, Sean. Thanks for that introduction, and welcome, listeners, Gen Z Nation, to our Student Success Podcast. We're really happy to have you here. And just to give you some intel, this real-world focused student success podcast is being coined by many college students, high school seniors, and postgrads all over the globe as really a lot of what college does not teach. And that's because for 4.5 years that we've been building out, doing a ton of research, and really working with not only postgrads and current students, but experts in the field, our own expertise, to get real, true feedback, to put this all together for you. They said, in many cases, the struggle is real. Well, we heard them, and we created this entire student success experience for you to flat out, and we are saying it and proud to, smash the struggle. This introduction will give you insight into the journey and chapter you're about to embark on, no matter what grade level or major that you're studying. And we think that's really important for you, as a listener to understand, is that it doesn't matter if you're a high school senior, if you're in college, community, or four-year, you may be a part of some different groups. The whole point of the Student Success Podcast is to be that complement to what college does not teach you. And the only way we were able to get there is truly by speaking to those that just finished and really worked through some of the struggles in college and that it was really top of mind for. And those were postgrads. We actually took over 600 postgrads feedback based on their college experience, what they didn't get out of college, really what they wish they would have known, and put it together, combined with some expert feedback and other specialists in the industries that we spoke to, really to help you as a student get ahead much earlier. It really becomes about the real insight that you need, the hustle that you can get for working for you, true people connections, and what it takes today to get prepared to be a student success. Success can be very vague, right? We all can define success very different. And how we define student success, again, has no matter to the level that you're in, grade level, or the major that you're studying. How we define student success is based on signposts and chapters. And we're able to give you those signposts and chapters along your way through the discovery that you're going to learn how to go through, and much of the effort and the action that it's going to take, combined with really the first thing, which is awareness. You have to know what's out there, know what to do, and know how to do it before you actually can get out and start to discover for yourself and, get through these early chapters. Our goal, like we mentioned, was taking over 650 postgrads' personal feedback, hearing that feedback from those postgrads that were basically 1 to 5 years was the range that we spoke to. And our final bit of our research was current students as well. And we put all this together to really get a sense of, what do you need today as a student that we know you're not going to get out of college? And we had to go out and meet with about 17 different universities at all different levels, including 24 actually career directors and advisors, to get a sense of what college was teaching so that we could complement that with what they weren't. They also are challenged with a lot of understaffing. They're challenged with a lot of people that have been in positions for 20 or 30 years that really don't have a true bridge into the real world. So that was the other component that we really felt was unique. So you as a student have a lot of choices that you can make. There is so much information on the internet. There's so much almost clutter and so many different ways you can go. You landed here with us, and you got here for any number of a few reasons, and you found out about us probably from any number of a few ways, but you are here right now. And we knew this coming in, that once we have student listeners, we want to make sure that they understand that we are positioning ourselves to be your central hub. We want to be your go-to foundation, and we are not saying by any means that we would be your only source of information. We shouldn't be. We definitely shouldn't be, because you need to be really doing your homework and doing your research and discovery and investigating as you move through these different levels and chapters of your life. But what we are saying is that there are a few things that make us very different.
So TJ, before you go into the differences, I want to go back to what you said about how we are defining student success, because as you know, and I'm sure our listeners know, there's a few different platforms out there, different podcasts that are under the student success label. And actually, there's a lot of departments in the past few years popping up at community and four-year colleges called student success and are dedicated to that. So could you talk about how they're defining student success in those departments and on those other platforms, those podcasts, and how are we different? Can you just explain a little bit about that to our Gen Z listeners?
Sure, Sean. I definitely, with our differences, I think I'm going into the differences of the platform, and I think what you're doing and asking is to go a little bit more even top level back to student success specifically. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, I just also, if you you talked about signposts, and we both know what that means, but if you could just go and explain that, what signposts means, and kind of tracking your progress and feeling productive.
Sure, the signposts and chapters. Yeah, so one of the things you as the listener need to know, and this is depending on where you're at right now, what grade level, if you're a senior in high school, whether you're in college. If you're going to college, keep in mind there is a department in most schools called Student Success Services. So first off, know that. They're really helpful to utilize and show up at and get to know everybody at. Another point kind of Sean was making is to really, he was asking me how they're defining student success. And I think the answer to that is they're still defining it, Sean. I think they're evolving and they're growing and they're really working into, understanding what does today's student success mean for this new generation. And I think one of the things that, that we're really thinking a lot about is that the word success itself in root form can be defined very differently by each student and each person, right? But with some key overlapping elements. So let's keep that in mind. We all have our own perspective and definition of success. So, let's define for you, what student success to us is, and you will see really what makes us unique is, we're not just a podcast, we're a brand, studentsuccessu.com. So I think, Sean, it's really important for them to understand, what that means to us. And, many colleges, as you mentioned, Sean, do have a new department, and this department being Student Success Services. With the very changing landscape of the job market, there's colleges that are really just trying to catch up. They're really behind and they're evolving. They're trying to figure this all out. Seeing how people today perceive students coming into and out of college is a big part of understanding student success, because most colleges want to graduate students who are ready for the real world. So, we really had to think hard about what student success today means for us from a real world perspective, not just from what college is defining it as. So it has, very little to do with a resume or cover letter. And I think this more than anything.
Absolutely. That's, that's not an accurate reflection of who you are. That's only a piece of the puzzle. And while a lot of the things that we do here are absolutely resume builders and things that you'll be able to do on your own and be able to put as real experience if you set yourself up the right way, that's just a very small piece of it. Really, there's so many different steps, and that's what the signposts are about to me. It's setting yourself up to not just treat yourself like a student, but treat yourself like a business that has skills and products that are going to be very attractive to employers upon graduating.
It's true. And as we get into this entire listening experience of these episodes and, of the platform and the engine and the things that we're all doing between the Student Success Podcast and studentsuccessu.com, The first thing to really think about, and I want to paint this for the audience on this introduction, is we view student success really first as kind of an outer layer with outlying words that surround that term. And things like awareness, learning, discovery, growing, going and get what you want, being proactive, right? Eliminating first and feeling productive. One of the big things, having gratitude, right? Being grateful for things and really keeping that as a part of what you're doing. Be the college student, right? Be the college student who's sincere, who's growing, who's discovering, and people respond to that, right?
People are going to want to help that guy. Absolutely. It's a basic human instinct for, to give mentorship and give advice to people who are looking to seek it. All you have to do is be grateful and look for it in the right places.
Sean, and our student listeners too that are listening right now, with what we've seen and who we've spoken to and everything we put together and all the postgrads that, have given us feedback, and our own team here that are postgrads, as well as my expertise, all this that we've seen, we really define student success as that series of signposts through different chapters. But here's what it's important to know is nobody's really picking a career anymore. It is these chapters, right? And it's a much easier, more absorbable, less overwhelming way for you to look at it as a student. It's almost like a mindset. Instead of feeling the pressure to pick something for the rest of your life, nobody's really doing that anymore. And that's important for you to know. Take a little of that pressure off, because, the true definition of student success really roots itself on effort, right? It's combining your effort by becoming aware first and then taking those efforts into your discovery through your outreach to really get more prepared. That's the whole point, is you have to be proactive in your outreach. You have to be, going to places and meeting people and doing things, but you have to know how to do that. And, you have to know how to do that through each stage into or through college. So success for students is a path, a journey. It's all filled with efforts to get informed for you, and doing it through experts, through people that are already doing it, either into the jobs that you want to do, the internships you want to get. Who are the people that are already doing that or hiring into that, or know people who are doing that, right? That's what it's all about. And you have resources, so utilize them, right? They may not always be helpful resources or give you or get you what you need or want, but the actions that you're taking are going to be super helpful. And the point of this introduction is really to introduce you to all of this in a way that gives you consumable information so that you develop yourself as a thought leader on your campus to really spur that discussion. And Sean, we talked a lot about the collaboration aspect of what we're doing. Students today love to collaborate. They love, recognition, but they also love to
College knows it too. They're really putting a bigger focus on group projects, teamwork, because that's what you're going to be doing in the workplace. Is you're going to be fitting in with a team and performing different roles. And it's critical how you handle working with people.
You say that, and right away I think of the last 6 campuses, 5 of the last 6 campuses that we've been to, that we've visited, that we've evaluated, that have been really gracious and helpful with us. And, when I think of top of mind awareness among each other and peers and college students, out on the campuses, so many students don't go into the offices anymore. Those resources are right there, yet they never step foot through the door. And it's shocking to hear the numbers, the amount of students on a campus, 10, 15, 20,000 students. There's like 12, 15, 20 people in career services. That's like 1,500 to 1. There's no way that person is helping 1,500 students. But how many students never even walk in the door or only really walk in once?
I don't have the figures on that, but I would imagine it's a big amount. Big percentage.
It's huge. And you could just kind of see the stress and frustration on a lot of these advisors' faces that we spoke to. And this kind of goes into my next point, Sean, which is many campuses have really missed the mark here. And, there are only a few small colleges inspiring young student ambassadors to be their own voice on campuses, which means like if you're talking about, life preparation. I don't want to use the C word, career, because I try to stay away from that word. But if you're in career services or student success services, many of these departments don't inspire young student ambassadors on their campuses to be their voice. So if students aren't coming into the offices, why not have students on the campuses that are that voice? And, it kind of goes to this point of being proactive. We want students to know, their success is a combination of discovery and listening, like you mentioned before, right? To what it takes to be successful early.
Well, really.
And then applying it.
Well, really, too, like you said, going back to the students that aren't going there, why is that? Because they're not aware, because they're paying attention too much to what's going on right now academically and what they have to take care of right now. And they're not thinking about, hey, what is this all leading to? What kind of professional am I going to be afterwards? And, that's what sets a student rock star apart, is that they have the effort and the willingness to go to the career fair, to go to career services, not once, but regularly. Every semester, make time for it. And
2, 3, 4 times a semester. We're shaking our heads here. Students are expected, let's call it as it is, right? Students are expected to discover on their own. But how is a student, and I say this because I was a student and I fell into this, how is a student supposed to know how to discover, where to do it, with who, what to do to know, right? Or to know what to ask? I think if I were to put it in a very comfortable, simple scenario, we clear that up pretty nicely. That's really one of the key focuses, is to get into those scenarios. And I think really, and one note, you guys, this ties into a real quick point, is this introduction is 000, and it goes with our first episode, number 1, as being a bit different, because they're ground setting for you, right? We're establishing everything for you. And we're doing that in this intro, but episode 1 can be listened to right after this episode 000, because that's my story, and that's kind of what spurred me quickly to say this to you, is this intro and my story, who I am when I was a student, where I came from, and you'll see kind of why I care about you, right? And I'm not just saying it, we're not building this out of the air. Episode 1 also has to do with why I picked the team I picked to work with. Sean and I, shared a lot in common. Our team, we share a lot in common as real world guides for you, and really be there for you, right? As you go through your foundation, to set that foundation for you, and being that central hub.
It's cool because it's a bunch of different people that came from very different places, all went to different universities, have very different skill sets. But what we have in common is the growth mindset. And the idea that we're never, ever a finished product, and we're never, ever going to be one thing. And this goes back to what sets apart a student rock star. Really quick, how many students change majors, start in something, realize they don't like it, and go to something else? Well, what do you do if you're pivoting majors to something different? I didn't. What sets a student rock star apart is they're taking things that they learned, they're going, okay, what did I not like about this that really made it not an option for me? What did I like about it? Are there certain skills I can take that I learned from it and apply it to something new and build myself with these skills, even though I'm going into something else? And that's what makes someone truly unique, that they're not having a one-track mindset. And even when they have setbacks or something that can be seen as a mistake, they're turning it into a positive, and they're really taking great takeaways from it. And
it's that is right. That's the growth mindset. I think we should do a quick little shout out to Carol Dweck, who wrote a great book called Mindset, and eventually we will work on getting Carol onto the podcast down the road. This is a book just based on the fixed mindset versus a growth mindset. It is a very intriguing read for students, and something we recommend. We get no bonus, anything for this. We like to do shout outs for you, the students, whether or not this person decides to come on the podcast. We will work on that for you, but we think it's a great reference for you. Sean, I think one of the things, to let the students, understand is that they'll be learning, through discussions and interviews on these podcasts, many key real world driven strategies, tips, approaches, and models that they can use for themselves, again, to really become aware, meet new people, and gain direction through that almighty discovery process. Not just saying it, but understanding what it is and how to do it. That's really, that's what we're really kind of keen on. Because you said student rock stars before, and right away the first thing I could think of is, well, all the students listening definitely want to know how they can stand out among their peers, and that's really by being a thought leader today.
So that's really interesting, because thought leadership is a big topic that's coming up in a lot of circles, especially around student success now. Could you define thought leadership for our listeners?
Sure. I think it's coming up in a lot of topics, just to hit that too, because that's what hiring managers, intern managers, founders of companies, startups, that's what they're all looking for, is that leadership experience, right? Or that aspiring leadership experience that students may have. How I define thought leadership, I clearly define thought leadership today by taking information that a student learns, really understanding it, and bringing that information to their peers. Right? They're bringing information to their peers that their peers didn't know, and being able to make sure their peers understand that information, that it's clear to them, almost in a teaching capacity, right? Or in a collaboration capacity. That's true thought leadership. The more times a student does that, whether they're a high school senior through their leadership programs, right, in school, or they're aspiring student leader in high school, or they're in college, they're surrounded by tons of their peers. It's almost like they're taking the onus, they're taking the ownership of pulling in information, being a sponge to represent 300, 500, 1,000 students, because we all know that there's only a select few students taking the initiative or being proactive right now to even just listen to this podcast. So everything that a student is getting from here, in a lot of cases, we say it's a lot of what college doesn't teach, but it's a lot of thought leadership type of information that's just going to empower and fuel students. And that's kind of goes right into one of the goals here, right? The goal is to empower you, the listener, to fuel your collaboration. And once you learn what we're doing, to be that source or hub to your peers, right? For great info ahead at your school or really on your campus. And there is a program we'll talk more about in a little while that actually will fuel that for you. But now what I want to do is I want to switch gears just a little bit for you, the listener, and I want to key in on a couple very key things overlying for this introduction that's going to set the pace and tone really ahead. First and most importantly is our mission at the Student Success Podcast. The podcast is a part of a much bigger picture for student success that we'll talk a little bit more about later. But our mission at the Student Success Podcast is to do one thing: smash the struggle with effort, awareness, and creativity to get you ahead now. That's our mission. And I'm going to say it one more time, is to smash the struggle, because the struggle is real. And our goal here is to smash it with your effort, awareness, and the creativity to get you ahead now. Our objective as a podcast platform and program is to connect with 3 million students globally and to empower 3,000 young student leaders we've carefully selected and will select over the next year. These true core ambassadors of student success will exist within their school or campus, statewide, or because it's global, within their province communities. Schools are understaffed these days, we know that. And these student ambassadors are really going to help drive the early preparation for student success and the student success message to be top of mind out and around where students are. Here, we want you to be able to cut through the confusion clutter, like we called it, and as we called it before, and Sean talked about, and really give you exactly what you need to get prepared for the real world now, and really start to figure things out more clearly with clear purpose. And purpose is a word that's going to be in blaring lights, right? Purpose in your discovery, and then purpose as you grow. Purpose is a word that many students lack and have lacked because of identity, not knowing what they want to do, confusion. Through this podcast experience and listening experience, you will have purpose now. And your purpose for your whole life may not be discovered or known, and that's not supposed to be. Mine took about 18 to 20 years, and you'll hear that in episode 1. But purpose for us right now with you, you will have purpose after you're listening to a few of these episodes, and you'll understand really clearly what you need to be doing. So rest assured and keep that in mind. One funny thing is, when we did all of our feedback and got a lot, I learned some great vocabulary, Sean. I learned a whole nother language, and I thought it was pretty awesome. So I'm going to share that with our student listeners right now.
So word of the day.
You know what? Let's make word of the day. This is totally not planned. Lit. L-I-T. That is our introduction word, is lit. And apparently there's a whole language that I don't know. Shame on me, but I've learned it and I've got it down pretty good now. And when we got our feedback, many of the actual quotes were, "This is lit," and "fleek."
Fleek.
I'm like, wow, on fleek. I was like, wow, okay, cool. I have no idea, and I'm looking over for some translation. And another one was "dead double SS," which I don't want to say on the air, but in terms of our accuracy, they were talking about what they needed, what they wish they had a year out of school. And even the generation, I think, as I talked to current students, I heard this a lot more with them in that lingo. It was quite, it was funny. Let's put it that way. I understood it, and I was like, wow, okay, these are awesome, solid, on point. These are all words I use. But these are
90s words, right?
New translations of the words. So that was just pretty funny. So
the more things change, the more they stay the same.
Exactly. So I wanted to, Sean, what I wanted to do is give them kind of a synopsis of the creation of this whole thing and some of our differences, right?
And really quick, before you go into that, I want to just explain for our listeners, a word of the day is going to be done every episode. And what it is when you hear the word of the day, you take that word and you go to studentsuccessuniversity.com/podcast. And what you're going to do is once you send that in, you're going to be automatically entered into a contest every week where either TJ or I or another member of our team will give you a call for 10-15 minutes that week to talk to you about your student success plan and where you're going and what your goals are for the future and how we might be able to help you get there.
It's really interesting, right, too, because the word of the day is an actual personal phone call. Imagine that. We're not hiding behind data, code, technology, platforms, devices.
Beep, boop, beep, bop. Yes, you get to talk to Sean Bot.
Sean Bot
who will
makes some
have many
appearances.
automated responses for you. He is a growing artificial intelligence being. Beep, boop, bop.
Yeah, the thing we are actually completely against, right? It's all about taking tech, balancing it, and building human connection and relationships. And I think that's the point, is why we make those personal phone calls, is because it's something we talk about and we show students how to do to connect with people down the road and in our engine. And everything that we're doing is all about standing out, right? And positioning yourself. So one thing I wanted to do is give you guys some intel real quick now in this introduction. Is this whole platform and podcast was created by me, your founder, and your host, and along with my host co-host, Sean Malloy. And, many postgrads, experts, and a few specialists in key areas that are passionate about driving your success played a major role in bringing this global production to you. And we know there's a couple other student success podcasts out there. We really appreciate their efforts and what they're doing and everything that they're kind of doing and bringing, because they care about students as well. What we want to be able to do is kind of give you a good intel into what we're doing and make sure that that's also clear. The dynamic with Sean and I is very complementary in that I'm kind of the marketing, the digital, the business side with some technology, mixed in and kind of the mentorship that I've gone through in my career and my experience. And it really complements with him really well because he's the engineering, the technology. He's got a little bit of a flair for music, a big flair for music, that side of things. And he's a recent postgrad. I've been out for a little while now, and I've been mentoring all along 2-3 different generations of students. But, I'm not that old myself, but I'm also been out for about 17 years now. And I've gotten to see, a lot of different levels of students in different companies and startups. So for him and I, it's a great combo that offsets, today's student with today's experts. And it's kind of in a solid fusion, right, into our discussion and our format. And one of the things that, we've gotten from students already is that it's real, it's sincere, it's real world. Yes, we're a little bit cheesy. If you can't have humor in life, what good is it, right? Whether it's funny or it's not funny, you got to be real. And having some fun is always important too. We're making it truly what college doesn't teach. And we've said that a couple times because we do want to drill that home with you that, it's really important to complement what community colleges and universities are doing, because you need kind of two, 3 angles to the student success puzzle. Colleges can't, because they can't really duplicate this because they're not out there, right? They're not out in the real world. We are. And we really know what you need to complement your college experience because the people that we've brought on are just recent 1, 2, and 3 year postgrads that it was very fresh and top of mind for. So, as you'll see and hear, more so you'll hear and you'll see through our platform when you go on and join, it's not just myself, your host, and Sean, your co-host. It's a lit team, as these guys would say right over here next to us right now.
And you know what?
They're holding up a sign, lit team. I love that.
This brings me to my next point. So yes, what is Student Success University? What is the Student Success Podcast? It is what college doesn't teach. But could you, for our listeners, explain very briefly a few of what those things they don't teach are? And then, like you said, there's other student success podcasts. There's student success, departments popping up all over the country and beyond in different campuses. What makes us different? What's different about our podcast, our platform? Like, what really sets us apart?
Well, I think the fusion between the real world and recent postgrads first. If I were to go top level, top of the funnel, that stands out to me right away. And that's what stood out to many.
Multiple perspectives.
You're getting a fusion, right? You're getting a fusion together of recency, recent and postgrad being top of mind and knowing, and you're getting, a bunch of experience from a few of us, myself included, of the real world professional experience, working in Fortune 500 companies, working at startups, seeing a few different work environment levels and being able to speak to a lot of that so that students today can prepare and stand out. But let me go in, Sean, and let me hit on some key differentiators that you guys need to know and understand. And what makes us different than many of the other podcasts to download on iTunes or other platforms is first and foremost is what we are connected into and that what we've started globally, right? We're not just a podcast. And what we're doing is becoming the first real-world focused total student success experience that includes all 3 Ps for you. So what are those 3 Ps, right? First is the podcast that you're listening to on iTunes, SoundCloud, or Stitcher. Platform, right? There's a platform, studentsuccessu.com, that we have that's an online, right? That's online with a community. And it's also a membership portal and an engine. And the third P is a program on campus or in your school focused toward real-world student success. And it exists as an ambassadorship that you'll hear more about later, how to become a thought leader amongst your peers and also gain resume experience.
So I just want to illustrate for our listeners really quick. What does that mean? We know that students in college, and you guys are realizing this too, learn different ways. Some learn visually, some learn auditorially, some learn through reading, the good old-fashioned way. And what we have here is if you listen to a podcast and you want to learn more on one of our topics, maybe it's branding yourself. You can go onto our platform now, and then one of our other members, Alex, and some other students have contributed a bunch of blog articles that you can also read about the same topic to expand it. And hey, maybe, reading or listening isn't your thing. Maybe you need something visual. Well, we're also going to be releasing courses that will be able to take you even further into meticulous detail and give you all sorts of content to help build your success and keep growing and discovering day in and day out. And that's, to me, what sets it apart, because on top of that, it's not just online. It's also coming to your campuses. We're going to be providing opportunities. I want to put TJ on the spot because he's teased it a couple of times with our ambassadorship. Why don't you tell a little bit about some of the things we can bring right to your campus and this great experience that we're going to have for some of our top students?
So absolutely, Sean. I think one of the key differentiators on that third P is the program, right? And we all know the catch-22 is you need a job to get experience, but you need experience to get a job.
Do I know it?
That was the first problem I set out to solve, was how do we make it easier for students to learn and apply, but at the same time, have the opportunity to gain experience by being a thought leader amongst their peers. The best way to do that is to take great information that no one else knows, start to put it into play yourself, start to know things your peers don't, but then be that conduit and that bridge of great information to be able to share that with your peers, get their eyes opened a little bit, start the collaboration, and get great resume experience on your resume. Whether you're a high school senior, you can do our Brand Ambassadorship 1 program, Student Success Ambassador program, or if you're a college freshman, sophomore, junior, you can go into our Brand Ambassadorship 1 program and potentially advance into our Brand Ambassadorship 2 program, which moves a little bit off of campus. So it's really interesting, Sean, when I think about core differentiators, you have the 3 Ps, which are great, but here's another one. We started the student improvement movement, right? That's a complete experience from collaboration to community, thought leadership, and really direction to, like our mission says, to smash the struggle. And we know that struggle is real, but we know that the answer to the struggle is effort and awareness. There are key things today students can be doing, and we really know that, right? So, that's what students said they wanted, so we gave it to them. They wanted the 3 Ps. They wanted to learn in a bunch of different ways via writing, reading, video, short blogs, nothing crazy, but enough to reinforce key takeaways and summaries after the podcasts, being able to listen in their car, on their campus, in their dorm. The total listening experience, we really wanted to create this total student success listening experience, like we said, in those places, right? So you can kind of listen and view anytime, anywhere. So, that 3 Ps, the student improvement movement, those are 2 key things. And the fusion of really the real world and our recent postgrads and our team is really 3 key differentiators so far. If you'd like to join the movement, you can go to studentsuccessu.com to get started making progress. And don't forget to subscribe here now as well. Also, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review, and share with your peers who that really could benefit as well. Here are a couple more key differentiators you really need to understand and know about. One is this is for any level, right? Our podcast topics, discussions, and platform are for any grade level, any major, and really an aspiring young thought leader or a current young thought leader. Depending on where you're at, if you're already in clubs and programs or you're looking to be, or if you're bridging into college or you're already in college, maybe you're an athlete, you may be in Greek life, whatever group or position that you're in, this is really here for you. Keep in mind, it's action driven, right? It's not just listening to a podcast, but you're going to be able to take what you learn, join the movement, as well as our student success engine, and really apply what you're learning out into the real world. It's a total listening experience, right? So to subscribe anywhere, anytime, within our website or on your phone or on your campus or in your school, in your dorm or in your bedroom, right? Laptop or phone. It's a total listening experience. And really, you can take notes or you can just listen. But you can always get the key takeaways and summary on our site after each episode, as we mentioned before. Here's another differentiator. It's a 2-part listening format for you. So this is something many students gave feedback on. No one we know focused towards student success is doing this, but we know you need to hear things 2 or 3 times in short and longer form, really for that stick factor. And Sean really brought this up too. So, what we did is we've created a long full cast, which is a normal podcast, and then we've created what's called a fast cast for you. This, we deliver this student success podcast through a kind of a discussional format with myself, Sean, your co-host, 22 branded breakout segments, as well as interviews from time to time with other industry experts. The platform, the podcast as it exists is discussional, but also in some cases, very how-to on very important topics. Some of these topics are branding yourself, marketing yourself, selling yourself, that are all very different. Targeted relevant networking, the elimination game, and many other core topics that students really wanted to know and told us they wanted us to kind of talk about. As mentioned before, really quickly, you have 2 different listening style formats, but what we want you to know is the normal fullcast version is to listen to weekly. That's about 45 to 60-minute episodes. But we wanted to be unique, like we said, based on what other students said they would want. So we created also this Fastcast, which we mentioned, designed for a quick listen in about 10 to 15-minute episodes that support the longer one. So those students that really, kind of listen in different ways or need shorter or longer, really they can it caters to both, right? And many students said they like to do both each week because each one is released each week, that they love that 2-part where they can listen to the longer one and then get a short one. Or if they're pressed for time, listen to the short and then go back to the long when they can. So really our fullcast is full of great discussion back and forth along with key takeaways and summaries on our podcast site tab. and also some contests, action points, and then in listening shout outs to our students. We also like to sometimes get our students on interviews with great stories, student spotlight segment we do that with. Our Fastcast is right to the point, which is really great for you to know. It's just the info, there's no dialogue, and it really is a shotgun format by me, your host, to get you really in one short stream what you need. During every episode, Sean mentioned we do a word of the day, right? And a real person actually could call you based on you writing in just to talk to you. And that word of the day usually is said 2 or 3 times through each full cast and 1 or 2 times through each the short cast. We ask that you, our students, like we said, subscribe, rate, review, and share. We also, we value all of your feedback and ask really what you would like to hear about, right? Any challenges that you're having. So feel free to write in. One of the key things, too, is to get validation from others around you on what you're learning and you're doing and you're talking about. Because you need to start to hear those validation points about branding yourself, marketing yourself, selling yourself, building your skills, targeted networking, how to really kind of figure out what you want to do through discovery, but also ask people what they think about you reaching out to experts before you actually pick a field. Ask that question to a few key people around you, what they think of that approach. And we would love to hear your feedback on it. We mentioned our brand ambassadorship program to gain real resume experience, right, by being a thought leader either at your school or on campus. Keep in mind, you can do that by going to studentsuccessu.com, and we let every student know yes or no if they're brought into or accepted into the program, and we give them that courtesy. And also, in some cases, a short interview on our Student Success Spotlight branded segment with some ambassadors that are selected. So with that, guys, we want to make sure that this podcast platform and program really are all fueled by the many mistakes of prior students over the years. What postgrads said they would have wanted and the feedback we got about what really happens in college and doesn't happen. So if you can imagine, in summary, your listening experience is going to be, in most cases, based on 2 things. If you take one thing away from this entire introduction, is that your listening experience, not only long and short within this podcast, but also what you're going to gain from it is basically everything that postgrads said they wish they knew, that you're actually going to know well ahead of time. And you're going to know it through those postgrads and through, experts in the field, including myself. So this is something for you as current students that really, when you share this with peers and you are that thought leader, this is one of the key things that you can really say is it's a lot of information, not only that college doesn't teach, but it's coming directly from real and recent postgrads of what they didn't get or wish they knew.
And we're taking those problems, guys, and we're going to be introducing them to you, presenting them to you. But not only that, in our episodes, we're going to go through real strategies, real solutions, real game plans that you can go after the episode. And if you want, in a lot of the cases, start enacting them right away, that are going to really get you set up for success through our branded segments and other parts of the podcast.
And Sean, it's interesting. If we recap this, right, and this is what we want to do for you students now in a very short, quick, kind of a fast cast segment, right? This is one of the models that we do use, but we'll do it for you here at the end of this intro, is, we talked about a listening experience. We talked about the student improvement movement, what college doesn't teach, how our podcast exists as podcast platform and program, right? The real world expertise that you're going to gain, and really being a first fully connected student listening experience globally. That is our position as a student success engine, as you may call it, or experience. The mentorship and the passion behind all of this that really is being driven by some of those biggest mistakes that students have made and allowing you to avoid them, right? We talked about just right now, postgrads and expertise in getting information. You're going to hear more about in episode 1, our story, my story, and a little bit about my background, and really carry you through this introduction through our listening, episodes and experience. Also, one of the things is key is our audience, right? You learned about you, the listener, a little bit. Who are we speaking to, right? From high school to college, to community college and 4-year, Greek life, athletics, those different groups, tons of those different groups all need to know how to get themselves set up for success and need to know how to do that through real world strategies. We know that, and we also know that the collaboration factor, right, is really key with you guys. You want to speak, you want to get feedback, but in the same sense, you're looking to build thought leadership, which this podcast is targeted to those aspiring thought leaders and current thought leaders within schools. The key topics that we're going to discuss, we went through. We also went through some of the, the ideas of how-tos and things that we do, our shout outs, our word of the day, our subscribe, rate, review, and share. One thing we didn't get into that's really, really important to us, and we'll talk about this more, is our charities, right? The charities that we focus on, that we want to make sure that as the podcast grows, those charities grow with us to help kids, to help the less fortunate, animals, and also things globally that are major global issues. We'll get more into those later. We mentioned some of the skills and the practice and the products Sean was talking about before, that your products are your skills and you are your own brand. And that's going to really kind of take its own escalation through this listening experience, because you're going to start to realize how you build on top of things, no matter what field, no matter what age or grade level you are. You have to set an semblance for a foundation for yourself, not only in your own purpose, your purpose now, right, which we'll make sure we establish with you. That's really important, but also your foundational structure as you grow in how you discover. So with that, I want to actually kind of mention what really inspired me as your founder to do this. And I think the quick kind of transition into episode 1, which is the story and the inspiration, is really hearing from so many postgrads and so many current students what they didn't know and what they weren't really learning. And, I struggled, right? And I'll talk more about this in college. I paid my own education. And I really, if someone understands what the struggle is real means, it's me. And if you take, my marketing, my sales, my business development, my mentorship, my background in technology, and you put it all together and, really my passion to help students and being able to do that and seeing the real reward behind it, I could tell you that in summary, that's really, from an expertise and an experience standpoint, what really inspired me this last 4 years to take a ton of extra time to research and interview current and post-grad students, not to mention experts and professionals in the field, so that we could bring this to you. So, with that, Sean, I am absolutely honored to be doing this podcast with you.
And TJ, I really want to thank you too, because I want to remind the students at this point that this is like really the top line reason to stay with us, in my opinion, is you, TJ, and the experiences that you had in college and in your professional career that you're going to talk about. What a student is getting is saving all of that time, all of that money, those 18 years, my time in college, Alex's time in college, what they've done, they're getting all of those different things, and they're saving, time from extra classes that they might potentially take as a mistake, time spent in the wrong internships, time spent doing the wrong things, money spent. That's what they're really saving with this free global podcast, is all of these experiences, and how you, not just the experience and the problem, but we're really giving you the solution and the step-by-step. And that's really what I have to thank you for, because you're really putting, sacrificing, a lot to put this out there and really help the students, close that gap and get meaningfully hired. And I exit college in either a job that isn't paying well or a job that's paying well, but they completely hate, where we can save you from all these things, but it starts with a willingness to get on board now and really listen.
It's a great way to say it, Sean, and thank you, by the way, for that. I appreciate that. I think for the student listeners that are here, you've taken the onus, you've taken the kind of that direction to listen, right? And so immediately you should be, I think you should be congratulated for that. And, being here says a lot about who you are. And, you'll hear throughout, obviously, your listening experience, some of our stories and all of the things that you're going to benefit from. But just know this, that as we wrap this up, we're doing this for you because we've seen kind of what's out there. We've gone through it. We did it. And we've got, after seeing 300-400 students become successful with some of the information that we put out there, we thought, why not take this globally? Why not take this, from the East Coast in the U.S. here out to the rest of the U.S. and North America and global, and this platform as a podcast, because I'm not a podcasting expert. I would tend to think, topically I'm an expert, but in terms of podcasting, this is all new to us. So, we appreciate you guys as listeners, and we look forward to having you in the platform to fuel that student success engine.